Hello, everyone, and welcome to Genre Flip. I'm Ben.
And I'm Eric.
And Genre Flip's a podcast where we take a movie in a clear genre, flip it around, see if it still works in a different genre.
That's right, and this week we are taking Happy Death Day, the horror comedy time loop movie, and we're going to be turning it into a Nick Cage movie.
That's right, not just any Nick Cage movie. We're making it into National Treasure.
Oh, you're right, I forgot. Whoops. My bad.
Yeah, so the probably the most recognizable Nicolas Cage movie. I mean, he's been in so many great movies: Face Off, Gone in 60 Seconds, The Wicker Man,
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Dude, he was amazing in that. How great was that movie?
Yeah, that whole movie was amazing.
If you haven't seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, we won't spoil anything. You just have to go and watch it. It is nominated for an Oscar for the best animated movie of the year. And if it doesn't win, then it's fucking rigged because this was hands down the best movie. But anyway, we're not talking about that. We are talking about Happy Death Day / National Treasure. Before we get into the National Treasure part of it, Eric, give us a recap. What's Happy Death Day all about?
It is about Tree Gelbman, weird name. She is a college student who wakes up on her birthday, goes through a shitty day while being a shitty person, and ends up being murdered by somebody wearing the mask of the school mascot. She wakes up on her birthday once again, goes through a day after being murdered again, realizes she is stuck in a time loop. Oh my god. So she tries all kinds of different ways to find out who the killer is. She ends up learning about Toombs, a convicted murderer who's being held in the nearby hospital. So she thinks it's him who's killing her every day. She plans the perfect day where she's kind to everyone. She's able to reconcile with her father. She kills Toombs, and she celebrates her birthday with Carter, the guy whose dorm room she woke up in. But then she wakes up and it's her birthday again. Oh my god, the day started over. So she discovers it wasn't Toombs who was killing her. It was her roommate who was framing Toombs, and her roommate wanted to kill her because Tree was seeing the doctor she was in love with, and she just hated her in general. So
yes.
Yeah, Tree kicks her roommate out of their bedroom window and kills her. Breaking the loop for good.
Or so we think, because it seems like the trailer for the second one seems like she's going right back into the exact same day again.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck is going on there.
I don't either, but I'm really excited to see it. Before I nitpick this movie just a little bit, I want to say that I really like this movie. It is not that great, but it is so fun and a really cool concept, and I love it.
I think it's a good movie. I like this movie a lot, yeah.
No, I don't want to say, well, okay, when I say that it's not that great, the acting's not that great. Carter in particular, I think it's just like the way that his character was written is kind of weird, kind of cringy a little.
Mm-hmm. The only part that really makes me cringe with him is that she like immediately starts falling in love with him as soon as he's like, I didn't rape you. She's like, oh, what a gentleman. You were a decent, basic human being?
The one thing that I really wish that they had explored a little bit more with this movie, and they didn't, was the fact that in the middle of the movie, she goes into the hospital because she wakes up and the doctor says that she's got like something inside of her that is like her scar tissue is like fucking, and she's like should be dead. And then she's like, I get weaker and weaker every time I wake up, and I'm like, dude, that is intense. That makes this that adds a crazy element to the thriller part of it. And then they forget about it and she's fine again.
Yeah, that is interesting. I wonder if they're going to pick that back up in the second one, because like you'd think that even if that doesn't end up killing her, it seemed like she was in more and more pain as the movie went on, and they just kind of forgot about that.
And I don't know that they are going to remember that, because in the trailer it shows her jumping out of a plane naked or something like that. So I'm like, she clearly does not give a shit about this.
Yeah.
But let's flip this around a little bit here. We got to add some Nicolas Cage action into it. We got to add some National Treasure. Got to make this a big. I don't know. Is National Treasure a heist movie? What?
It's partially.
It's kind of like a very high budget knockoff Indiana Jones.
Action, comedy, thriller. Yeah, it's Indiana Jones if it took place all around U.S. history and founding fathers and shit. Yeah.
So how are we going to do this with Happy Death Day?
I mean,
are we going to continue to follow the plot of Happy Death Day but throw Nicolas Cage and the Declaration of Independence in there? Or is it going to be National Treasure but Nicolas Cage dies over and over and over again?
I think it'd be good if we stuck with the structure of Happy Death Day, but kind of work Nicolas Cage and what's his character's name? Ben Gates?
Yes.
Work that guy.
Benjamin Franklin Gates, you have been chosen.
It's been a while since I've seen National Treasure.
It's been a long time for me as well. That said, I have watched both the first one and the second one, loved them both. Can't remember a single thing about the second one, so this is only about the first National Treasure, the OG.
I think I saw it in theaters like twice, and the only thing I remember is Nicolas Cage screaming haggis in a weird way.
Do you remember this one line, the secret lies with Charlotte?
Oh, in the first one, yeah.
Yeah, in the first one. I think of that all the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so National Treasure. Okay, so Nicolas Cage is tasked with either, what is it? He's stealing the Declaration of Independence or doing something. He's got to be tasked with something, and if he fails, then he dies.
Well, he discovers that there's a map on the back of the Declaration of Independence. Do you want to just say that this is kind of a sequel to National Treasure? Like, all of the events of the first movie take place. So Benjamin Gates and Abigail Chase have been together for a little while, but as traditionally happens in sequels to movies like this, they're like splitting apart or whatever. They're divorced, and it's like, oh, I gotta solve another mystery to get my wife back or whatever the fuck.
I always hate this kind of shit in movies, and usually it's just because they're like, well, we couldn't get the actor to come back, so they dumped you.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that you ended on such a high note.
I mean, they're together in the second one, right? Or she's in it at least.
No, she is in it. That's what's a little bit different about it, is that like they break up and you're like, oh, it's clearly because they couldn't get her to come back, and then she's back in it, and you're like, what? What was the point of all that?
Here? Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, we'll say like maybe something like that happens. Who knows? But where I'm going with this is I want to get Nicolas Cage onto a college campus because he's solved this mystery. He's gotten that 1% of the treasure or whatever. He's set for life money-wise, but his passion lies with teaching people, showing them hints and clues, and solving these mysteries. And what
he
better
becomes
way
the U.S. history teacher
to do that than you got ahead of me, become a U.S. history teacher. So yeah, he goes to a local college in, I don't know, Pennsylvania, wherever he is.
The Bayfield Babies.
Bayfield Babies. He goes there. He decides to teach U.S. history, and along the way, maybe he'll have some mysteries to solve. But one day, after a particularly shitty birthday, he gets murdered by somebody and wakes up and relives the same day over and over.
Right.
But who would be doing this to Benjamin Franklin Gates?
Right. So I'm thinking that we need to take some elements of National Treasure and throw it into this this college campus movie. Like maybe since it was his birthday, he wanted to do some sort of big celebratory class where he's just like, you know what? I stole the Declaration of Independence once. I'm going to take it in, and we're going to we're going to show everybody
They just let him have access to it now.
I don't know. Well, shit. I mean, there's got to be like some sort of like, artifact or historical element to it.
Right. Okay.
Or this isn't National Treasure if it's not.
Right. Let's say his birthday is also like the anniversary of some sort of crazy historical event, and he wants to like teach his class about it in a fun way, and he ends up gaining access to some sort of artifact. In that case, it could be like whatever mystical artifact is able to reset the day, and that's what gets him stuck in the loop. We could do it way, or we could do it where, like Happy Death Day, the loop is never explained.
What if, maybe it is in the sequel, we don't know. What if he wakes up in a college dorm room? He and Abigail have broken up at this point, and he goes on a bender and wakes up in the college dorm room of Tree, the main character of Happy Death Day.
Oh, that's okay. So he's the professor that she's been sleeping with.
Right.
Damn, Nicolas Cage going cradle robbing over here.
And so maybe she is like not kind of a bitch in this movie. Like maybe she's like, dude, she is horrible in the beginning of this movie.
Oh, she is, yeah.
Like they really walk a really nice, like a really good tightrope with her character, because she's like a stone cold bitch, but at the same time she's likable.
Yeah, and you want to see her become a nicer person.
Yeah, and you want to see her make it out of this. Like I still feel bad. Like every time she dies, I'm like, Tree, no.
You know who I really fucking hated was her one sorority sister, Who just
Oh, yeah.
that one part of her making fun of like the way deaf people speak was like, oh my fucking god, that's awful.
Yes, she was terrible. And so was the roommate because she was a murderer.
Oh yeah, she did bake a cupcake though, so adds a little bit of niceness there. Even if it was poisoned.
Okay, so he wakes up in Tree's room and he's got a splitting headache, right? And he's like, "You got any Tylenol?" And
he's got to be like, I can't fucking believe I slept with a student. I vowed
Right.
I would never do this. I just got way too drunk. I didn't know what was going on or whatever. I don't know.
this needs to be like a stereotypically girly room. Like he needs to wake up and it's just like fucking covered in princesses of pink, you know, fluff everywhere. Like everything is really soft in this room.
He wakes up holding a stuffed animal.
Yes. So she, she maybe is like sitting there on the other bed and she's like looking at him all, like wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. She's just like super excited that he's here. And he wakes up and he's just like hungover and he's like got a really crazy headache, gets some Tylenol from her. She scrounges around the room trying to find it, of course, kind of similar to exactly what happens in Happy Death Day.
Right.
And then he gets up and walks out of the dorm room, right?
Right. He's got to be like, what time is it? Oh no, my class starts in
Right.
15
Sure.
minutes.
So he walks over to the class and he gets in there and he's wearing the same suit that he wore at yesterday's class, and some fucking asshole student. It's like, "Ooh, walk of shame, Professor Cage," or Professor Gates or whatever.
And he's like, fun fact, the American patriots never had a phrase for walk of shame.
Well, Benjamin Franklin was kind of a skis ball, sleeping with all kinds of people, and he's my namesake. So
Yeah, I guess so.
anyway, he goes into class. What happens from here?
Okay, what if he goes into class, he realizes he doesn't have a lesson plan for the day, he doesn't have his laptop because he didn't have it when he went over to Tree's place, and so now he's here with nothing but his own skill of improv. So he's not gonna start screaming haggis, but he's going to like look at a nearby calendar and be like, oh yeah, not only is it my birthday, but it's also the anniversary of, we should decide what this is right now because I don't have anything lined up.
The anniversary of some sort of incredible historical event. The day that George Washington did something, or
Crossed the Delaware.
The day that Abraham Lincoln abolished slavery.
Sure.
Or, I don't know, something.
Okay, what if we make something up and it's like a conspiracy kind of thing? So something that people wouldn't ordinarily believe. Like this is the kind of stuff that he lives for. Like
Right.
he knows that there's some kind of fucking Templar founding father conspiracy about how George Washington and Thomas Jefferson made some kind of pact to hide away this ancient mystical thing that they brought over from fucking England one day.
Right. And they hid it over in like California or something like that. And somebody does a quick Google search on their laptop they've got in class. And they're like, George Washington's never been to California. It says right here on Google. And Nicolas Cage, his character, Ben Gates, is like, not everything you read is online is the truth. That's a horrible Nicolas Cage accent, but
What's in the bag? Like a shark or something?
Oh, man.
So
Anyway.
Nicolas Cage is like, you can't trust Google. Did Google tell you there was a map on the back of the Declaration of Independence? No, that was moi. So you're going to have to trust me with your own 2 ears. So he says, all right, so there was this mystical artifact that it's said that Washington buried in California. And I actually went out there searching for it no less than 7 years ago. And you know what I found? An empty hole. Turns out somebody else stole it in 1813 and took it to right around where we live right now so that it can factor into the plot later. But we don't know exactly who owns it or if it's hidden in something within a museum or anything like that.
But he needs to have a piece that's like, but I was able to find this, and it's just like the missing piece of the puzzle.
A very small fragment. And then somebody else is Googling and they're like, Professor, it says here that they actually just unearthed it in the remains of a basement that was sealed off 100 years ago, and they put it in a nearby museum. And he's like, oh my God, I have a new thing to latch onto and go crazy over. So he's
A
like,
clue.
what if he's like, all right, everybody, field trip, we're going to the museum. This is like a 3-hour lab class or some shit. So
So they all go to the museum, and he finds the artifact in one of the sections behind the glass.
yeah, he's
and
like, oh, can I touch it? And they're like, no, it's behind glass, you idiot. He's like,
Don't you know who I am?
don't you know who I am? I stole the Declaration of Independence. I can steal this piece of shit. Come on. And they force him to leave because he goes crazy, starts screaming haggis. They get him out of there. And he's like, all right, well, I'm gonna go back when it's nighttime. So he takes his class back. He's like, the class dismissed. Go have fun. Go to your Googles and whatever. Go do the floss. Go play Fortnite.
Go do your Googles and play Fortnite.
I want to hear Nicolas Cage
God.
talk about Fortnite.
That's what this whole movie is about. So he's getting ready to go back to the museum to be able to steal it. But this is when the thriller aspect of it comes in, because he doesn't make it all the way to the museum. This is how he dies for the first time.
Okay, so he's on the way to the museum, and on the way, what happens? Does he like drive? He drives to the museum. He could either get killed by like somebody who's hiding in his car, or he could like drive over a nail and get a flat tire, and as he pulls off the side of the road, somebody attacks him.
I want for the person that attacks him to be in a costume that looks like George Washington. It's like the founding fathers are coming after him for stealing their treasure.
Yeah, just somebody wearing a George Washington mask comes up. Maybe that's like the mascot of the college that he teaches at.
Sure, it's not the Bayfield Babies, which
Yeah.
is hilarious. It's not intimidating at all, but it is creepy as fuck in this movie.
Yeah, it's a cool design. But in this case, it's the founding fathers.
I mean, it could be like, there is the Patriots of, the New England football team. So, you could even call it that, and then your mascot could just be the most American person of all time, George Washington.
The Pennsylvania Patriots.
There you go.
Oh, there we are. Okay, cool. So he teaches at a Pennsylvania place. They call themselves the Pennsylvania Patriots. And so George Washington comes and murders Nicolas Cage while he's trying to change his flat tire. And he wakes up on the same day in Tree's dorm room, and he's like, oh, what's happening here?
Yeah.
So he goes through the motions, discovers, oh, I got a splitting headache. Oh, shit, class is in 15 minutes. And he goes, and he's like, the same person says, like, ooh, Professor Gates, walk of shame. And he's like,
Yeah.
fuck you, kid. And gets up to the front of the class. He's like, man, this is a weird deja vu. This is so strange. This is even weirder than the time I stole the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, right. And so he brings up the Declaration of Independence, and then he's just like, oh, he like looks down at his watch, and he's like, oh, it's my birthday. It's just like, and coincidentally, and that reminds him of the artifact that he stole 7 years ago. Brings it up again, talks about it in the story. The kid brings up the fact that it has now in a museum, and he's just like, okay, this is getting really weird. The exact same kid said the exact same thing the last time. In my dream that I had last night.
Right, yeah. That's so weird. I had a dream of my whole day today. You know what? I want to incorporate Riley in some way, because I like Riley a lot in National Treasure. So what if, instead of Tree's dad calling her, in this version, it's Riley calling Ben?
Sure.
He just doesn't want to answer it because he's like...
He's embarrassed that he's given up the game.
Yeah, he and Abigail aren't together anymore. He's like, there's nothing for me in that world anymore. I'm a professor now. And so he's like, just ignores Riley's call. He doesn't have to have a birthday ringtone. What kind of ringtone would Benjamin Gates have? It would be like the fucking national anthem. So that would start playing. And he'd be like, oh. And
does he decide to take his class to the museum again? Or
maybe.
I
Maybe
feel like
he's
we're getting into semantics, because at this point it's just going to get into where he just dies over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Right. But this is the second. This is right when he wakes up and discovers that this is a time loop. So he's like, I got to see if everything's the same. Like, and he's still interested in finding out about this artifact. So he's like, okay, field trip, we're going over there. He goes, he sees it, he's like, oh my god, it's real, it's the same thing, it really is here behind the glass. This is something that hasn't been discovered for several centuries, so what the fuck, this is crazy. How in the world did I deja vu all of this? And he's like, all right, well, tonight I'll come back, but I've learned a little something about my dream. Maybe it was a premonition, just making sure I don't die, because I am the destined one to go and find this artifact and unlock the mystical secret. So he does at night drive over to the museum, but he takes a different route so that he won't drive over the nail and get the flat tire. But something else happens, of course. Maybe he encounters like some road work and somebody's like flagging him ahead through a different roadway, like having to take a detour. And then along the way, he is stopped. Like he finds a barricade and he realizes there's no way out. And somebody is approaching from behind in a different car with their brights on. And out steps the guy in the George Washington mask. And he's like, what the fuck? But he gets out of his car. He's like, hey, listen, I don't know what's going on here. Like trying to explain himself, but then he starts getting chased after this. George Washington is chasing him, and he's running away. He starts running through the woods. He thinks he's hidden. He thinks he's safe, but of course, George pops out and stabs him right in the heart. He's dead again. I keep wanting to think of like some sort of kill line that's related to like the Declaration of Independence or some shit.
I found my father. No, the freedom of speech.
I pledge allegiance to the flag. Wait, I pledge allegiance to the stab.
Oh, damn, that's good. Yes. Cool. So he pledges allegiance to the stab, and then Nicolas Cage wakes up the next morning, and he's like, okay, some weird shit is going on here.
This is a pattern. Yeah, there is something supernatural occurring.
Yeah, but I think that he needs to come to the realization that he's just like, okay, clearly I meant to steal this thing from the museum. If I can just steal it, maybe I can get all this to stop.
Right. This all started happening when I realized that this artifact exists. So that's the only connection I can see. And he's like, also, he's got to be confused about, like, who's murdering me? And he's like, the only people who know are the staff at the museum and the students in my class. So it could be any of them.
Oh, shit. I have an idea. Total twist here. What if the little piece of the artifact that he has with him is attached to the other artifact, and the reason why that artifact is so special is that it basically gives you immortality, makes it so that you can reset the day in the event that you ever are killed.
Okay.
Because he has a little piece of this that he carries around with him, he has a fraction of that immortality.
Cool. Okay. There's got to be some sort of legend then with like George Washington, and like he and Thomas Jefferson, I think I said, like discovered this, and they were like, no man can wield this much power. So they decided to go to over to the entire other side of the country. Like they manifest destinied their way all the way over and buried that shit like 20 feet deep and came all the way back. And the other guys were like, hey, what were you guys doing? They're like, nothing. Checking out West Virginia.
I'm thinking that another thing that we need to add in here, I really liked the concept of every time that Tree woke up that she that she got weaker and weaker and weaker.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to introduce that concept. What if the only thing that changes each time that he wakes up is that the fragment of the artifact gets smaller? And so each time he goes to the museum, he notices that the fragment that he holds is now smaller, and the fragment that is in the rest of the piece of it in the museum is now bigger.
Okay, so like little pieces of it are breaking off and returning. Right.
So each time that he dies, it's returning so that eventually it'll get to the point where he will be dead and the artifact will be whole again inside the museum.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. What should we say the artifact is? Is it just like a vase or something?
It really doesn't matter. I mean, it could be anything. It could be just some sort of like round relic of some kind.
Yeah, an
and
orb.
He's just got a sliver of it. Or it could be some sort of staff, or and then he's got like a piece of the stick. Part of it, and
the
just
wood
getting
that came off. Yeah.
Right, and it's just getting shorter and shorter and shorter each time he dies.
Sure, yeah.
And so he is able, like, he sits down, does some quick math, and he's just like, okay, judging based on, the amount that shrinks each time that I die, I have approximately X amount of lives.
Maybe like a millimeter breaks off of this little splinter of wood that he's got. So he's like, okay, it looks like I have maybe like 20, maybe 30 chances, something like that. Because, of course, there's the whole montage sequence where she keeps dying over and over.
Right.
We can make it whatever number we want. It's kind of arbitrary.
Right.
But yeah, so he discovers that, okay, I'm in a time loop. It's connected to that relic that I want to go see. And it's the only reason I keep waking up after dying is because I do have a piece of that relic. So it's got to be something time related. Like maybe the only clue that he has to work with is somebody who like once was documented as asking George Washington what the fuck the relic was about, and he was just like, "Oh, I don't have time to explain." And Nick Cage is like, "Oh, it has to do with time."
He is now trying to hunt for clues. That's the point of the movie that we're at here, where Tree is like writing down all the names of the different suspects of people and then marking them off over time. And maybe like we need to come up with some options for different people that could be the killer, right?
Right.
Could be Tree. She was looking real creepy whenever he woke up in her bedroom.
Yeah.
It could be the douchebag kid in class that
keeps
that
saying,
calls him out on the walk of shame.
Yeah.
Could be,
It could be the kid who is on Google.
Yeah, it could be Sean Bean's character from the first Declaration or National Treasure movie.
After getting out of prison, he also becomes a professor at the same university, and now they're like rival professors.
Well, he doesn't necessarily have to become a professor. He could just like see, Ben as being like the ultimate terror.
Oh, okay. So what if he actually got like injured while in prison or something, and so he's being held in a nearby hospital? So Sean Bean could be the Tombs of this movie.
Okay. So, he sees like on the news or something that he's now like being held in the hospital instead of being in prison. He's like, oh my God, he's got to be it.
Yeah.
He's like my arch rival.
I feel like that happens a little bit later though, so like he shouldn't quite figure that out now, or maybe he could see it and then he could like make a list of all the people who it possibly could be who are killing him. It's got to be somebody who knows that he's going to be there, knows that he has an interest in this ancient relic. So Ian would be a good choice because he would know about the relic probably. He has motive to get revenge on Ben and kill him. Maybe he thinks he like writes down Riley's name. He's like, no, it couldn't be him, and like crosses it out.
And that can be something that people suspect, but it's never going to be Riley. Riley's the most good of all people.
Right.
And I feel like we've got to introduce Riley coming up very soon here. He's got to answer the phone or he's got to go and visit him. What is it exactly that Riley wants with Benjamin Gates?
What if what Riley wants to tell him is that, listen, Ben, I know you're not into like this life anymore with the treasure hunting and the mystery solving, but I know you want to get back to it. I know you just want to come with. Maybe he leaves like a voicemail or something like that, and he's like, I just found out about something big. You got to give me a call back. What if he wants to talk about that relic that was just unearthed? Like he also knows about it.
Right.
So he's trying to get Ben to go with him to the museum to check it out. And Ben talks to him. He's like, no, I've been there. I've been there for several days now checking it out. And Riley, I keep dying. He's trying to explain. I guess in this movie, it's kind of going to be like the Ben and Riley are more Tree and Carter because like they start working together to figure out this mystery.
Sure.
It could be Tree, but I feel like that'd be kind of weird. Like,
that would be pretty weird.
Yeah.
Given that she's like some sort of student and he's like her teacher.
Yeah, that already is strange.
Yeah.
But of course, it's got to be like, oh, you didn't sleep with me. You just wanted to make sure I got home safe. And he's like, oh, thank God. Whew.
He made sure that she got home safe and then passed out on her bed.
Yeah, she's like, well, you saw me out. I was like, I don't know, getting harassed by some guys or something, and you saw me, and I had you for a class 3 semesters ago. So you offered to walk me home to be safe, and then you just passed out. So I dragged you into bed. I slept in the other bed. He's like, oh, okay.
All right. So anyway, she is not really a big part of this movie that we're making, though. Right. She's just the person that he wakes up near.
She's just a fun little Easter egg for fans of the first movie.
All right. So he decides to take the call with Riley, and the two start to become a duo again, right?
Like Riley, of course, believes him, and there's a little bit of hesitation at first, but he's like, okay, we've been through some crazy shit. I can get behind this. I'll help you out here, bud.
And so maybe like they decide that they need to steal the Declaration of Independence, the relic from the museum. And so they try a whole bunch of different things, and like Nicolas Cage is caught, or Riley is caught, or one or the other, and so he like kills himself to be able to reset the day, kind of like in Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah. Every time the guy in the George Washington mask just keeps showing up and killing one of them.
Right. And so they need to finally they are able to steal the relic. What happens now?
So they finally get their hands on the relic. It's been a while in the movie now. Maybe Nick Cage thinks that, or he thought that once he has the relic, he'll be able to gain control over this time loop process. Like maybe he thinks he can control it. He can like warp time to his own advantage. But I mean, it's got to go wrong. Like we can't have him immediately become a time god upon getting this relic. I don't know what does happen. He could like take the little splinter of wood that he has and like stick it back where it belongs in the side of the staff. I mean, what if when he does that, he immediately wakes up again, and it's like, what? That wasn't what I had to do.
How did that kill him?
It doesn't kill him, but it just does the reset. Yeah,
sure, resets the day immediately.
Maybe it doesn't allow you to like. The only way that a piece that's broken off the staff can return to be a part of the staff is if the person wielding it keeps dying, so that a piece of it keeps going and turning back into the staff.
And the only way that it can come back is if it regrows itself, basically, into there from the death of the person that has the piece.
Right. Like, you can't just stick it back in, or it'll, like, register that you're cheating and send you back to the beginning. It's like,
so
no, you gotta do this the hard way.
After he wakes up again, he immediately, starts talking to Riley, and, he and Riley determine that is the case. That stealing the piece from the museum isn't actually going to help them. It is just kind of a red herring or a misdirect on the overall mission of what needs to happen. Obviously, the main thing is he needs to stop whoever this George Washington guy is that keeps on killing him over and over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, if he just keeps dying over and over, eventually the staff will be a hole and he'll be dead. He doesn't want that. He's got to figure out who's murdering him.
So he assumes immediately that it's Ian, right? He's just like, clearly this guy is my arch rival. He's now out of prison and he's coming for me. So he ends up like going to the hospital where Ian is now being held captive, and what happens from here?
He can get into the room. I mean, in this case, Ian could still be like chained up in the bed. And, like, clearly he's not a threat. He's like, yeah, I just, like, while I was in prison, I ended up breaking my ankle. And they had to bring, or I don't know, something that would require him to be taken away into a nearby hospital. And he's like, listen, I'm not a threat anymore. I've turned my life around, man. And, it's funny how Sean Bean is in this movie and he's not the one who's dying over and over and over.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Does he believe him? Does he just be like, oh...
Well, he could be like, okay, I've heard about the relic that you're talking about. Maybe he like actually helps Ben by giving him some sort of information.
Okay.
He's like, wait, you didn't know that the staff goes with a shield? Yeah. Who only wields a staff without the shield? Come on. And Nick is like, I listen, I know everything about U.S. history. I have everything between the years of 1776 and today memorized, and I've never heard about no shield. And Ian's like, oh yeah, it's not in any history books. It's something that only us black market traders have heard of.
And it happened in 1775,
yeah,
the year before you started memorizing.
And Nick Cage is internally, he's like, oh shit, I don't know anything about 1775. God damn it, I need to listen to Ian. And Ian's like, yeah, but I don't know, if you want my help, I think you'll maybe need to get me out of these, and like shakes the cuffs on his wrists. And Ben is like, I can't do that, Ian. You're in prison for murder of 8 billion people and also thievery. And he's like, come on.
8 billion people? He killed every single person on the entire planet.
And more.
And then some?
Yeah. Dude, I mean, if there's time loops in this universe, that's possible, right? What if Sean Bean was in his own time? I'm going on that tangent here. Anyway, yeah, so Ian has this information. And what if Nick Cage is like, you know what? I'm probably going to get murdered again. So, like, what if I let Ian out? And then when I get murdered, like, it's going to reset the day anyway. All I need to do is get his information once, and then I'll be good. But Ian leads him to where the shield is, and then Ian wields a piece of the shield and gets stuck in his own time loop.
What?
So now they're both time looping to the same day, retaining the knowledge of the previous day. So now, once again, like the first movie, It's Ben versus Ian.
Right. And so he goes back to the hospital to talk with Ian, and Ian's like, "What are you doing back here?" And Ben's mind is just fucking blown, right?
Yeah.
He's just like, "Oh my God, somebody actually remembers all this shit."
Yeah. Are you telling me you remember yesterday? He's like, yeah, you let me out of the cuffs. We found the shield, and then all of a sudden, I woke up here. What the fuck is happening? And he's like, oh my God, Ian, okay. This has been happening to me for the last 2 weeks. And Ian's like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? I guess these two now are going to have to, either they work together to figure this out, or they are versus each other because they are now in the same predicament.
We could do the Harry Potter, prophecy thing, like, neither can live while the other survives.
Uh-huh. Okay, so like now that they are both imbued, one of them with the power of the staff and the other one with the shield, now it's like it's coming down.
They have to kill each other, basically. One of them has to die by the other's hands.
It's interesting, though, because Ben is the only one being murdered, and that's resetting the day. So is Ian just like only resetting when Ben is murdered, or is he also going to get murdered?
Is he just like along for the ride, I guess? Maybe they were both killed in that tomb, like, or wherever they went to be able to get the shield. They both immediately were killed by some sort of something.
Okay.
And maybe
I feel like if whoever is killing them has knowledge of the staff, they've got to be like, and knowledge of its powers, I'm guessing, because if they're going to kill them wherever the shield is hidden, they also knew about that somehow. So it's got to be somebody with really intricate knowledge about this stuff.
Right. I have been assuming this entire time that the person dressed up as George Washington was Abigail. I don't know if that would that would not make any sense.
That would be a little strange, yeah.
Well, because they broke up and she was heartbroken, and
so she murders him.
So she sees him go home with a with a young woman, and in her jealous rage decides to murder him.
Wow. I feel like that's kind of out of character for her. I mean, I get it.
People be crazy, man.
I feel like at one point we're just trying to find ways to bring back every character from National Treasure. I feel like she's got to be turned to at some point in this, like in figuring out who in the world even knows about both the staff and the shield. What's the job that she has? Was she like a museum curator or something like that?
Yeah, she was kind of like the head person at the Smithsonian or something.
Okay, so what if she's the head at the museum that he goes to try and check out the thing?
Okay.
So she's been here the whole time, and he like saw her when he took his class here, and he was like trying to hide from her. And so it's just adding another extra layer. He's like, I've got to check out this staff at the museum, but my ex-wife works there. Oh, awkward.
Sure, but it's not her.
Right. He can think it's her because he's like, maybe she lets it known that she did see him going home with that one former student of his. And she's like, no, we're not together. You can do, whatever you want, assuming she's fucking, not underage. Whatever. He's like, don't worry, I didn't sleep with her. This is a weird sub-drama to have in a National Treasure movie.
Sure. What if it is all about the girl, though? Like, what if it is all about Tree? Like, the person that's actually in love with her gets jealous of the fact that the teacher was there. And maybe it's like the star.
What if that's the guy in his class who was like, oh, walk of shame? Like, he's trying to embarrass him, but he's really secretly pissed off internally, and he really wants to kill Nicolas Cage, which would make sense because he would go on this field trip. He would know that Nick Cage wants to come back and retrieve this staff, and he's got access to a school mascot mask. So
okay,
why not?
Sure. And so that's ultimately the person, or it could be even a little bit less obvious than that, and it could just be like some sort of like know-it-all student in the class that's like, hitting Benjamin Gates' star pupil or whatever. Like the kid's like, this kid's going places. He's gonna get an A+ for sure.
Yeah,
because he knows everything about history, and that is something that's necessary to be able to murder someone like Benjamin Gates.
He knows just the cool historical phrases to say when he performs the murder, just to impress his professor one last time. At what point does he discover that it's this student? Like, he's got to realize that it wasn't Ian, it wasn't It wasn't Abigail. It's obviously not Riley, because Riley's been helping him out. It wasn't like some of the other people who he's suspected. And so it finally boils down to him. Maybe like one day he goes through the loop. He's like, I just want to have a normal day for once. I'm going to go to class. I'm going to teach my class. I'm going to grade papers, etc. And while he's there, he notices something seemingly innocuous, but he's like, this isn't something that like almost anybody knows. How does this one student know about this, I don't know, particular thing? Anyway, this leads him to realizing that this one student knows things that he's realized are integral to, I don't know how to explain this fully. You know what I'm saying?
See, this is the joy of creating a script for a movie on the spot of a like history, knowing that neither one of us know that much about it.
A historical movie that turns into a fucking time loop movie with all these different suspects and characters going on here. But yeah, he notices something about this paper that his student wrote, and he's like, How did he know about this? So maybe he goes to like talk to, like he invites him to come over for office hours or something. He's like, I just had a question about your paper I wanted to ask you before I give you a grade. Maybe he's like, I'm afraid you plagiarized this, just to get him to come over. And when he comes, like looks in the kid's backpack and he sees the George Washington mask. He's like, oh my God.
Right. One thing that kind of didn't really make sense in the movie to me is that how Tree was never able to unmask the killer.
Yeah, you'd think that she would just grab and rip it off real quick.
Yeah, I mean, because there's that struggle between her and her roommate, at the very end, and it seems like they are, kind of on a level playing field here.
Yeah. Whereas previously the killer, she had just been like overwhelmingly strong and brutal the entire time.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's difficult to write something like that.
Sure.
Time loop movie in general.
So there's got to be some sort of struggle. We're getting to the climax of the film here where, gosh, this student is really conflicted because he really wants to impress his professor, but at the same time he's in love with the girl that he woke up with this morning. Is really uncomfortable, I have to imagine, right?
Yeah, I would assume so. Like, he's being like a lot quieter. He's not like speaking up as much. And Ben's like, is something wrong? And he's like, do you know the student Tree Gelman? He's like, yeah, I had her a few semesters ago. And he's like, is that when did you last see her? Or so, I don't know, something like that. Making it clear that he is
he's interested in her.
Yeah.
So he just comes out and says, I don't know, I feel like he wouldn't do that. If he's a stone cold killer, he wouldn't like try to have an honest conversation with the professor. I feel like the professor's got to bring it out of him. I feel like he's got
to get like pissed at a certain point. Like maybe Ben notices that like mentioning Tree got him really riled up, so he keeps doing it. And he like, I don't know, says something that ends up launching the student into a quick rage. And the student realizes that he's like, he's blowing up in public. He doesn't want to blow his cover or have anybody find out what his plans are, or like be at the scene where somebody sees him getting angry at his professor right before his professor is murdered. So he's like, I gotta go. I got a class or something, and just bolts. And Ben, of course, is like, okay, that's really fucking suspicious. I'm pretty sure it's this kid.
And so, he comes out and like walks outside around the corner, and the kid is dressed up as George Washington with a flag in his hands, and he says, I pledge allegiance to the stab, and he turns the flag, upside down and charges at him as he's attempting to stab him.
So does Nick Cage get killed again? And just wake up?
Either that, or maybe there's a big struggle where he rips off the mask and he's like, I knew it.
He figures it out and then dies. And then like the next morning he wakes up, and the same morning, the time loops over again. He goes into class, immediately runs up to the kid and just like clocks him right in the face. Knocks him out, and he's like, all right, we got to get this kid to the police or something like that. But then of course the students call the cops on him, and he ends up being taken to jail,
where he stays forever. The end.
He's like, all right, I can't go that route. Can't do that. I can't just kill the kid. I've got to wait until he's away from college. What if, man, it'd be interesting if it turned into like the person who was being killed trying to just kill the person. And it turns into like him being a killer, like trying to track down the student.
What if Nicolas Cage goes crazy, basically trying to figure out his killer here? Now, we can totally not do this. This is just a really off-the-wall idea. But, like, because there's all kinds of different time loops in this movie, like, what if in his rage, he does something to the student that has been trying to kill him this whole time that it sets off some sort of weird time ripple that made it so that he is now trying to kill him. So, like, I don't know how to describe this. Like, it was Nicolas Cage's fault that there's somebody trying to kill him because he was trying to solve his own murder before it happened. If that makes sense.
Okay.
So now each time he dies, he goes back, like it is the person that he suspected was trying to kill him.
So
he wasn't trying to kill him before, but because Nicolas Cage did something, it basically, we now have this cat and mouse chase.
Okay. So multiple people have motives, and during any time loop, it could be any one of these people who he suspects.
I suppose.
So it, like, throughout this, it is multiple people killing him on different days, all with the same plan. Like,
that wasn't my initial plan, but we could certainly do that.
okay.
The idea was that, like, time is relative in this movie. Like, the thing that he does at 2 p.m. on the 30-second life that he's had in this movie is what ultimately causes this person to become the murderer, so that in all previous and future murders, it was him all along.
Okay. I see. So a butterfly effect that goes back and forth in time.
Right.
Cool.
So, like, wicked sci-fi shit.
Yeah. It's a very, very confusing movie to try and explain, but it makes sense given that we're making it up on the fly. It's fine. It works. So
I don't know. Is that a crazy twist, or is that stupid?
I think it'd be really hard to get this across in a movie without it being confusing as fuck.
Yeah, but I mean, Riley can be there to explain it to us.
Okay,
as he's
the scientist.
Well, he's the character that has always explained. I mean, everything in the movie is either explained by Nicolas Cage or by Justin Bartha. I mean, or Bartha, or whatever his name is.
I've got a brand new idea that's never been done before. So Riley takes a piece of paper and he folds it in half, and then he sticks a pin through it, and he goes, "This is the dimension folding in on itself." And Nicolas Cage is like, "Oh my God. I've never seen it explained in that way, especially in a movie."
What was the original movie that did that? Because I've seen it in a whole bunch of shit.
I'm not sure where it originated.
It's in so much. It's in Interstellar. It's in Ripple in Time. It's in I don't know. It's in a bunch. But time is relative.
Riley's got to stick the pin through the folded paper, and Ben is like, in English, Mr. Scientist. But yeah, it gets explained to him, and Ben's like, okay, listen, I know history, I don't know science. And Riley's like, okay, well, it's vice versa for me, so whatever. You get it now, whatever, piece of paper. So Ben is like, all right, so no matter what I do, it could be multiple people, and whenever the killer changes to another person, it changes all the previous times. So, like, what I do, like, how the fuck does he end this then? Like, what's the point? Like, if he stops the killer, it basically just turns into another person, and he can't put the thing back in the staff. So does he just have to, like,
shit, man,
die?
He is in a pickle.
Because, like, every time he dies, a little piece of this fragment goes back to the staff. So he's like, all right, I've got 2 more chances.
What if he gets to the point where he's on his last life? Like, he wakes up and he no longer has the fragment with him anymore.
Ooh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so he's 100% sure. I mean, if he dies, it is out. It is over.
So is it just like him accepting death is the way to get out of the loop? So he's just like, come on at me, George.
Well, I don't know. What if the loop just ends because he's no longer, maybe it was like the piece of fragment was a curse, not a gift. Like, it was, yes, it gave him immortality, but it made it so that he had to relive the same time that he died over and over and over and over and over again. So now that he no longer has any lives left, once he stops the murderer from killing him, it can't reset to a new person anymore because the days don't reset anymore. It's all together. The relic is now whole.
Okay. The only thing is that, like, then nothing that he did was of any importance, really, if all he had to do was keep dying over and over.
But what if, like, he has to, but like, what if they're all the killer? Like every single person that he came into contact with basically was someone that was trying to kill him. And so maybe he has to do something on this last day to be able to diffuse the situation, to make it so that none of them want to kill him anymore, or that he gets them all arrested, or he does something to make it so that they don't kill him on this final day. And so like he basically takes all of the lessons that he learned throughout the movie from all of the lives that he was killed in on this day, and he puts them all into practice on this one day, and he finally is able to make it to the end.
Okay. What if the kid who he gets in an argument with in his class, it's like, it's not over Google or whatever, but it's like the kid is insisting that this artifact has mystical properties, and Nick Cage is like, no, it doesn't, but it's a very big historical value, so that's what makes it really interesting, and that's what really is pissing that kid off. So he realizes, like, okay, it was mystical. He's like, yes, you are correct. It is a mystical relic that puts you in a time loop. I know all about it. I'm a genius. And then he like tells the other guy who was really pissed about him being with Tree. He's like,
we didn't sleep together. I was trying to make sure she got home safe, and then I was too drunk, so I passed out.
Right. He's like, I, as a professor, would not do that to a student. It's fucking weird. And then he like calls up Abigail. He's like, can we get lunch? He like goes and he talks to her about like how he misses her or whatever. And he's like sorry that he put other things ahead of her in their relationship, blah, blah. He calls Riley. He's like, hey, sorry, I've been blowing you off, man. Let's hang out. Then he goes to, he doesn't really need to go to Ian, but
right.
I don't know. The point is, yeah, he makes up with everybody. Nobody's angry at him. Nobody has any reason to kill him. And he allows himself, he's like, all right, all that stuff is done. If I'm going to die, I'm going to die. I have all my affairs in order. Maybe he like writes a new will or some shit. And he's like preparing himself, like giving himself up to the Predator. But then George Washington just doesn't arrive. He just keeps on living.
This is the most anticlimactic movie of all time.
I know.
If there's no like scene where he ends up like coming in and maybe there was like one final person that he couldn't convince, you know, to that he's a changed man or that he has done something good. So one final George Washington comes to attempt to kill him, and he stops him basically, gets him arrested or gets him killed. Basically, gets the George Washington imposter killed. And so he, you know, he's a little rattled, but he's still alive. And he and Abigail, you know, having seen him almost die in this situation, realizes that she's still in love with him, wants to take him back so the two end up together.
Okay, sure.
There we go. The end.
National Treasure 3,
man.
Good to go.
It's hard to weave multiple movies together and make them make any sense.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Especially movies, one of which is like a historical action-adventure family film. The other's a comedy horror time loop movie. Like
there needs to be more time loop movies. I mean, I know that there are a lot of like Groundhog's Day ripoffs.
I love time loop movies.
Yeah, but a lot of them are like really shitty Hallmark kind of stuff. I mean, have you seen these like, it's like, it's Christmas every day. What?
Yep.
But I mean, if they're good and fun, like Happy Death Day and Edge of Tomorrow, then there needs to be more of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Death Day, Edge of Tomorrow, Groundhog Day, Time Crimes is another good one. Triangle.
I didn't mention Groundhog Day because that's the OG.
Yeah. The archetype for all of the following movies.
Sure.
There have to be other things that played with time loops before that.
That's the one that really makes it popular, I think.
Especially, in cinema.
Well, I think that's going to do it for this week's Genre Flip. If you want to follow along with us into next week, How to Train Your Dragon is going to be the next movie that we do, since How to Train Your Dragon 3 is coming into theaters again. First two movies are both really solid. If you haven't had an opportunity to watch those, I highly recommend it. Rewatch it if you've already done it, and so that you can stay up to date with us on the final movie to be coming out, Genre Flip to come out in February. Anything else that we should mention, Eric?
If you like the podcast, it would really help us out if you could review us on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you're listening. That would be super helpful. So thank you all for listening, and we will catch you guys on the Flippity Flip.